Welcome to Behind the Brand, the podcast that offers a captivating platform for business owners to share their inspiring stories. Join us as we take a deep dive into the experiences of successful entrepreneurs, allowing them to step out of their businesses and reveal the incredible narratives that shaped their journeys. Gain valuable insights, learn from their triumphs and challenges, and uncover the secrets behind building remarkable brands. Get ready to be inspired by the personal tales that lie behind the brand.
Here we are. We're with Robin and Mark from Sydney Pole.
Hello.
Super excited to finally meet you guys. We've been back and forth with a few conversations. Super unique brand, an amazing concept. And the more we spoke about it, Mark, the more interested I was. So, very excited to get you guys in here in person and learn all about you as people and your background in corporate and, how you've sort of landed here with Sydney Pole. But, take us back to, almost your corporate days. Like, what's your background? Start there.
Well, I started in an event management company called Powwow Events, and we brought in international speakers such as Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Great book.
It's a great book, right?
Good book.
John Burley talked a lot about real estate investing and property. And as I look back, I was around sort of 20 when I started that job, and I realised I was exposed to some really great thinkers. So I'm really grateful for my time there. Then after that, I moved into General Electric, which is a huge global company. I was there for about 7 years, and I ran contact centres, so really a lot about operational leadership, listening to customers, connecting with people. And then I spent about 7 years there, and then I moved into the travel insurance industry. So I was there for about 7-8 years. And again, ran some contact centres there. And as I kind of look back over those 3 jobs, I was sort of in a small business to start with, then a huge global business, and then really a medium-sized business. So I got exposed to a lot of different sort of learnings and, lots of different courses that I went on. So, I'm sort of really grateful for my time at those jobs. Mm.
Yeah. It's a cool journey.
Yeah.
And it's like not a very sort of linear path to sort of one to the other. There's like a bit of a jump from, first the GE especially.
Yeah.
Massive jump to GE.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think the lessons and even just working in that corporate environment, right? Like the flexibility and freedom that you guys have now as business owners, I imagine it being one of the key parts of why it's so fun.
Definitely, yeah. It's, Mark and I often talk about pros and cons, in a corporate environment, when you first start a business, you've got the HR department, the IT department, and then when it's a small business, it's like, right, you're IT, I'm HR, and you're just doing all the things. So, pros and cons.
Yeah. And you, Mark, what were you?
I started life as a teacher.
Yeah.
I have a background in AI when AI wasn't
Wow.
a thing.
The OG.
Should have coined that.
Yeah, many years ago.
So what sort of teaching?
I used to teach in that space. I used to teach in university.
Wow.
I used to teach AI as a topic. So that was...
What were they talking? What were you teaching then?
So we used to look at a lot of things around the things that we kind of have now, but in a kind of more nascent form. So child learning systems and how we get computers to learn in the same way that children did.
Wow.
So machine learning, neural networks, all those kind of buzzwords.
Wow.
And a lot of the guys I work with went on to work in the driverless car programs. So they went to Tesla, they went to Google, and I ended up in pole dancing.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started off left in that, and then I was with GE for 22 years.
Yeah.
Started my life in IT, lots of different roles, pretty much all over the world. I ran all of the back office for GE Capital across Asia, and then most lately I ran GE's software business. So really broad-based career in terms of the things
Is that
I did.
where you guys met?
Yes.
Yeah, back in GE.
Yeah. Working out of Sydney or where?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my roles were generally Sydney based, but Pan Asia, which was really good to get to see a broader landscape, but get to live here in Sydney as well.
So as you transition out of the corporate life into business, did you both jump together or was it?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You were very went first, didn't you?
Yeah, so I saw an ad in a local paper, like an actual paper, about 15 years ago for pole dancing. And as a kid, I was always upside down. So I did gymnastics for about 10 years. In school, I was like hanging upside down on monkey bars, playing any kind of sports I could get my hands onto. And it was just a natural progression going into pole. And so I saw this ad and, you said at the time, oh, you should give it a go. And I thought, why not? lot. So I tried it. And I remember walking up the stairs to this small little studio in Artarmon in Sydney. And it was a place called Misfit. And Sarah and John were the owners. And I remember walking up the stairs and I walked into this space and I just instantly felt at home. I met this group of girls. We came from all different backgrounds and we just had the best time together. And 4 years into my journey of pole dancing, I remember in the last year, I was just obsessed with thinking about how I would run my own studio. And I'd go to the space and I'm like, I do this differently. And I just couldn't get the thought out of my head. Yeah. And I said to Mark, I came home and I'm like, I really want to open my own studio. It's changed my life so much and it's made such an impact on my life that I want to do this for other people as well. So it was, about the fourth year into my own pole journey, and we sort of thought, right, let's give it a go. And if it fails, it fails. And if it works, it works. And 10 years later, we kind of did it.
Well, it was just a joke that, at least we could say we
ran a pole dancing studio.
Ran a pole studio. Yeah.
Makes a good chapter in the book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that back then you would sort of talk about the experience you had there, and you'd say like it was always about the people and the experience, but you said that there was a lot more could be done in terms of like the whole sort of setup and the way it was run. Yeah. And we were seeing like the growth of the boutique fitness studios, right? And so loads of times we would talk about, is there a way we could do this better? Could we create something that kind of had that luxury feel to it and then kind of grow it? Yeah. And so lots of sort of ideas and scribbly drawings were done before we came up with the concept of the first studio, which we called Studio One, wasn't it? The very first one.
That was our first name.
Yeah, that didn't last. But from that was what Sydney Pole was born, which was when we started. It was 10 years ago, and 11 classes a week
and 4 staff. Now we have 200.
It's incredible growth, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it was a good transition, but I mean a lot of those kind of early underpinnings in terms of what we learned have shaped what Sydney Pole looks like. Yeah. And back then, pole was probably not as accepted as it is now. So it was a very different sort of market to get into.
You spoke about you loved it and like it made you feel good. Like what was it? Was it confidence? Was it fitness? Like was there anything sort of specific that you really loved about pole?
I think, obviously growing up, I was, always spending my time upside down. So I think definitely that sort of element of just being able to do amazing things with your body and just build that strength. But I think for me, it was the belonging. Yeah. So making the friends and connections I did in the space. And, I started because I just wanted to do something a little bit more than going to the gym and, lifting weights or running on the treadmill. So I started for that reason, but then why I stayed was it was my home away from home. It was a place to belong, and I built the most amazing connections. And 15 years later, there's a crew of 8 of us who are still really close friends today.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's funny, you talk about going for fitness and then staying for other things. We did survey our customers sometime last year and asked people why they came in the very beginning. And fitness was right up there as one of the top reasons. But then when you ask people 6 months later, fitness dropped down to like the 9th thing on the list.
Wow, that's incredible.
And it was things like belonging and empowerment and community that is really what keeps people staying. And I think that is very different about pole. I mean, like I go to the gym. I went to the gym this morning. I go in and do what I got to do, and I get out. Right, boom. Whereas people don't do that with pole. They come, they hang around, they stay, they do another class.
They celebrate the other people that...
Absolutely.
Again, I sort of no background. You might do a cool new trick and something that someone's been working at for a while and they haven't been able to master it, and there's sort of a lot of that celebration from the community.
You nailed it. Like people in class, you get something and everyone's like, woo, like clapping and you're like... I feel amazing.
Nailed it.
Yeah. And it is that. Often people say, I can't come to pole because I'm not strong enough. And we say, well, no, you don't come to pole because you're strong, you come to get strong. Yeah. And it is about embracing what you get rather than the things you can't yet do. Yeah. Right? My pole journey is pretty pretty dreadful. But even when I get a move on a pole, I'm like, I can do that, Yeah. And it's not that, the person next to me is better than me and can do that nicer. It's my journey. Yeah. And I think that's a real good lesson for people in life, in the sense that what we see is people stop measuring themselves by the person next to them, and it's all about their journey, their wins. And so overwhelmingly what you see in people when they come to pole is how they grow as individuals, how they grow in their confidence. I mean, you see that in terms of everything from, how they present, how they dress, how they are in the studio, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You see that journey all the time.
So, Robin, just back up there a minute ago too. Like you said, you were in the pole and your brain's going into how do I do this, how do I improve this. Was that always? Do you think it's always been part of you? Like, you know, when you walk into a business or you walk into it, you'd see an operation, you're like,
Entrepreneurial.
because like I've done that, and my wife, she hates it. She'll be like, you know, I'll be at a restaurant. I'm like, I could run this a million times better. I have that belief about everything. It's like I can improve every single thing I say.
Because it's so true.
Yeah, so that's you. Like that's
Yeah.
because I think it's common for that entrepreneur type person
Yep.
who we do. Yeah, whether it's misguided or whatever it is, like we believe we could fix everything.
Yeah.
Until you're in there and you're like, everyone's looking at us going, "Oh, if I do that differently," you're like, "Fuck off." Yeah. So do you think that's what it was for you as well? Like,
I think so, and I think, like you said, you know, you go into a business, and I can't just sit still. Like I'll look around and I'll be like, I change the lighting. They need to put more ambience here, and like do this, and I think it's always been in me, and I've always just been curious.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
So a class, is it like the structure of a class? Is it everyone doing the same thing, or is it like to music? Like, is it movements?
So we have a whole range of classes. So out of our class catalogue is probably 100 different classes. So we called Sydney pole, and that's our bread and butter is pole. But we have pole, we have aerials, we have hammocks, we have all different things, and we also have all the conditioning classes that go with it. So what you find is most people come in the door, the typical progression is somebody comes in. Most people have never been on a pole before.
Yeah.
So they do a trial class, they like it, then they do a beginner's class, and that's 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And they'll do that with a group of other beginners.
Yeah.
So typically in a class, it could be anywhere between 2 or 3 and up to sort of 10 or 12 people in the class. And they'll work on those same moves together. And as a group, they'll progress through that. At the end of the 10 weeks, we have a big show night, and they get to show off what they've learned if they want to.
So do they bring their families in?
Yes.
Oh,
they
wow.
do.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's huge. Like I remember our first showcase, we had maybe about 5 performers, and now we have like about 400
40.
people
Yeah.
that come and watch their friends and family.
Yeah.
So the night is just full of joy and energy.
Yeah. And we make it into a spectacle. We make it into something very much sort of a celebration. And so that's a big milestone.
Mark's actually performing at our next one.
Yeah,
No,
right.
Mark is performing in October.
October.
Thank you. And I hear the boys are joining too.
Yeah, we're
They're
going
quite
to organise
keen.
a duo performance
Yeah,
for you
I think
guys.
so,
Wow. I think so.
But so people start and they do beginners, and then typically what you find is everybody kind of goes slightly different directions. So somebody might carry on to the next sort of level up in the progression, so that'll be like technique level 1. But they might say, well, I'm not maybe as strong as I want to be, or I want to be a little more flexible. So we've got an array of other classes. Bendy bitch is flex and tone, you name it. We've got plenty of other classes. And so everyone's journey is a little bit different after that, and lots of different flavors of pole. Rock and pole, 80s pole, lyrical pole, you name it. We've got lots of different sort of formats. But group classes is what it's about, overwhelmingly.
Yeah. And is there 1 room, 2 rooms? How's it split up in the inside? Like,
all the studios are different.
Yeah.
Camperdown, our biggest studio, has 8 rooms in it. 5 rooms with poles in. Typically, we put sort of 12 to 14 poles in a room. Most of the studios are 2 or 3 rooms.
how big's that space?
2,000 square meters.
Wow.
It's a big space. You can say
It's
it.
a beast.
It's a beast.
That's incredible. Yeah.
But it is our flagship, and and we're doing 250 classes a week.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's meaningful.
At Camperdown, yeah.
Yeah.
think-
Started
it's
out as our 11 studios, 11 classes a week.
It was.
It's incredible. So yeah, back to you were doing pole. When Mark said, "Hey, I think we could." I think there's an opportunity. I think I can fix this. I can do better. What's that next step? Like, is it just find a space and then go? Like, how does it start?
Yeah, I mean, I think, finding the right space, and, we did a business plan before we did it, at what we thought was a good business plan.
You follow that?
Yeah.
Is it like...
Oh, look, I think it was a guide.
Yeah.
But I think we were talking the other day, and I think coming from a corporate background is helpful, but it's so different to running your own business.
It is.
And I think we learned as we went.
Absolutely.
We made so many mistakes, and we continue to do so, like anything, right? But yeah, it was a journey.
I think now we look back and we did it on our own and sort of did it the hard way. And as we get into the franchising space, one of the big benefits there is our system is 10 years in the refinement.
Yeah.
And so for people we talk to about starting a pole studio, there's so much more.
Yeah.
They're not having to sort of reinvent the wheel and make the same mistakes.
The other thing as well is, and I think it's valuable, is it's been refined on your own dollar, and it's not refined on the the dollars of the other
investment.
franchisees, or
Yep.
it's like you've had to do it and you've had to tweak it where it made sense. And I think that's to me it's a really valuable thing as well.
And look, COVID along the way was a great big learning as well. And I think that, we were chatting about this earlier today, that was a single big defining point which forced us to redefine the business, to streamline a lot of what we did, to really kind of tune it to what the customer really wanted in the most efficient format. And so coming out of COVID, I think, whilst COVID was a challenge for sure, I think the business is way stronger today. And I think as we started to get into the franchising world, we felt like we'd held back from that for a long time because we felt that the brand was sacred, that Pole was still quite early, but now coming out of COVID and having spent that time really refining the business, we feel like it's, in a much better place. Yeah.
I think COVID was obviously the hardest thing, but it was also the best thing that happened to us because we were 7 years into our business and COVID hit, and I think it gave us that time to just stop and reflect and slow down. We'd been going so fast, and I think that time we just reassessed all of our processes and looked at things differently and just gave us the headspace to do things differently.
Because at that stage, you would have been like on a run rate of 1 a year.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
From
It slowed us down.
From inception, that's pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
You usually see that growth after a few years. So, or it might have been that. Was it 1 a year, or was it one the first 2 years and then ramping up thereafter?
No, so we had Camperdown for the first 4 years, then we'd always talked about expanding, and I think the first studio that we took over was an existing studio in Penrith, and we got contacted by the owner and we sort of had a bit of a conversation, and I sort of got home and you're like, get in the car, we're going to Penrith. And then we met with the owner, and then the next day we owned Penrith.
Wow.
Hey, Mark, you still at GE now?
No. I've been gone for 5 years.
Okay, yeah. No, sorry, at this time, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
At this time, he was still at GE.
So Camberdown site number 1 or studio 1, whatever you called it back then, was open, and then site 2 at Penrith come up. You come home from work, just finish mucking around with the software, and you're like, Robin's like, come on, we're going to have a look at site 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was actually me dragging you there, wasn't
it
for
was.
that one? But yeah, and again, it was there were studios out there to take, and what we found in the Pole space is there's a lot of small studios out there, right? I mean, there's 30 or so in Sydney, and they run generally sort of 15 to 20 classes each. And one of the big challenges there is they usually get owner-operator. And that owner-operator is often teaching. Yeah. They're the one that's doing everything. They're the one that's answering the phone. They're the one that's managing all the marketing, everything. And they get to a point where it's just not manageable. Yeah. And so I think for us, that inflection point was really sort of a couple of studios in, and it was like, you can't manage that. Yeah. And with that, the sort of team grew, and we built like a hub and spoke model with a head office team and the team outside. But I mean, that's still very much what the pole industry looks like. You predominantly lots of small little boutiques around.
Yeah.
Very, very, very fragmented. I didn't ever know there was major brands or such. Like, just before the podcast we were speaking, and you mentioned that you're the largest brand in the world, which is incredible for a 10-year-old business.
Yeah.
It's I think it's incredible. So, for you guys, is it about mopping up some or trying to roll up some of this fragmentisation? Is that the plan? Is it greenfield, like a brownfield? Like, what do you
both? To be honest, I think that's somewhat an easier way to grow. That sort of semi-inorganic way. It's not without its problems. I mean, you take on an existing business, you get its staff, you can hit the ground running. Yeah. Great. But you take on a business, you take on staff, right? Yeah. So there's good and bad in that. But what we have done is latterly we have built some green fields, and in doing so, as we go into franchise space, we've tried to build out that model with all of the blueprints, all of the training, so we could go into a truly green field. Because if we wanted to grow, exponentially and grow, there are pockets of the world where there isn't pole. We want to go into Azerbaijan. There's not a lot of pole studios. So we need to groom up teachers. We need to groom up a studio owner. We need to kind of get that model right. So we have tried to build something that you can put into a complete greenfield. Take somebody, for example, who is a charismatic group PT, for example. Yeah. Teach them pole, teach them how to run a business, train up teachers, and get that working. Yeah.
Where did the name come? Like, so we Studio One, then we rebranded to Sydney Pole. Where'd that come from? Why the change?
Yeah, I mean, we never actually went with Studio One. No. That was just an idea.
Right.
Yeah, I think Sydney Pole just made sense. We were kind of talking about people who live in Sydney. They want to find pole dancing. We're like Sydney Pole, from a search element.
Yeah. It's like AAA plumbing in the phone book. It's kind of the same logic.
Yeah.
But for a while we said it was the best thing and the worst thing we ever did. Because it was like it was the great at that point in time for searching, but then it was like it did limit us. So if we went to another city, would we rename it something else or whatever? But I think now our brand, is very strong.
Yeah.
And so when we went into Brisbane, we've got 2 studios in Brisbane. We kept the name, and we actually talked to some of the students up there and said, should we change name? And they were like, no. We've been
Everyone knows you.
yeah, we've been looking at your content online for years, and so I think the brand now has value, and certainly Australia, in terms of the pole world, is very well recognised.
Okay,
so Sydney as a brand, I think, is a great name to have in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
even anyone that comes from overseas, they'll come to our studio because they're like, oh, Sydney Pole, let's go visit them.
Yeah.
It's
That's
very
a powerful brand. And I think it's very marketable to leverage that name internationally as well. And I think even because when I learnt your name, it's actually Zach and I spoke about it. I was like, they're going to franchise, they're going to grow. And we had that conversation as well. I was like, are they going to rebrand, or does it go Brisbane Pole?
Yeah.
And then now that I hear it and we spoke about it, it makes perfect sense that you double down on it and lean into that name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you stop if you go down that path?
Correct.
You
It's messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at each of the studios, it's just like Sydney Pole
Yeah.
Artarm and Sydney Pole
Yeah.
Brisbane
It's
City.
a
So
brand.
it's just like a...
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a license almost, like
Yeah.
similar to what CrossFit did. But I think if you're in Brisbane, you're even Melbourne or Western Australia and Sydney Pole, it's interesting. Like, I'm nowhere near Sydney. Like, what is
Yeah.
this? Like, it creates a little bit of interest, and it's really cool. So we got the second one. Did the staff stay on in that? Second one?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
So I think, we had all the instructors. Obviously, the owner left. But we kept all the instructors, and a lot of them are still around today.
Wow.
So it was
great.
good.
And a lot of the customers as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's really cool.
One thing we did learn was, if we did acquire a studio, how to make that transition and make it gently. People wanted a lot of the benefits of the brand. So we've always said, if you join one studio, you can go to a class anywhere. So our whole model is very much you have a membership, you have class credits, you can go anywhere. A beginner's class is run 25, 30 times a week. So if your shift patterns mean that you can't go to your normal Penrith 7 o'clock class, you can go to Parramatta at 8 o'clock the next day. But what we realized was, when we would acquire a studio, we had to make subtle changes. So we would take time to understand it before we changed the timetable too much. We'd take time to sort of be in the door before we kind of change the decor too much. So that was been a real kind of learning for us. We've had a few false starts where we've not done that as well, but I think that's been a great learning in terms of conversion of studios. Just to keep that sort of customer sensitivity in mind.
Were you on the ground a lot then? Early?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. When we opened the Penrith studio, I was there like every night.
Yeah.
And the studio would often close at 9, but I'd often be there till like 11 o'clock still talking to people.
Yeah.
Like they were just like chat, like they, just wanted to connect. But it was amazing, and I got to know so many people. But I was there a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are the classes typically like? What's the day look like for a studio?
I think it depends on the location, but most of our classes run in the evenings.
Yeah.
Some of the daytimes, we did try some early mornings, but I feel like pole dancers like dancing in the night.
Yeah.
Mainly evenings and daytimes.
Yeah. So first class typically 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
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 And weekends, Saturday and Sunday we
weekends
run.
are busy. People are off, so they want to come and do some classes.
Yeah.
And the format for most of the sort of 2-room studios is around 60 to 70 classes a week. We throw in practice time on top of that, so our members get like a free practice class for every class they go to, and that model seems to work really well.
That's like an open gym, open studio kind of a
So basically they come and practice the things that they've been learning in class.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have online content, so they can go and watch the moves they did, and they can replay them back and watch them.
All the programming that's done at HQ level.
Yes.
And who built that out?
Susie Q, so she was our group fitness manager at the time. So she built the curriculum from beginners right through to advanced. So you start at beginners, each term is 10 weeks. So each week you'll learn X, Y, and Z, and then you'll do some revision, and then you'll keep growing. And then once you finish that 10 weeks, you then have a choice to move up to the next level. But some people are like, actually, I want to try and perfect these and do it again. So it just depends on the individual, but we have levels right up to level 8.
Is that recognised like internally, Robin? Like if I'm coming, is there any way for me to know that you're at a level 6, or like is it like a karate style belt system, or is there something internally you guys use?
So we have prerequisites for each level. So if someone's new to the studio but they have had pole dancing experience, we'll do an assessment and tell them which level they're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're continually refining that curriculum. So, the mainstay is that kind of progressive sort of multi-level where you learn the tricks. And then all those periphery classes around routines and things, they're constantly evolving. And so we work on almost like a package concept where we introduce a new class. So, for example, we've introduced a class format this term called Vertical Pathway. We find a lot of people when they struggle to get upside down on their pole. So we've produced a sort of parallel curriculum where they can do a lot of tricks without have to going upside down. But in producing that Vertical Pathway program, we've built out almost like a package that the studios have, which has the promotional material, the teacher training material, the content that goes to the students, or the online material as well. And so all of that gets packaged up. And so introducing a new class now is something that we've kind of refined. And so each term we try and introduce 2 or 3 new format content sort of for the classes and roll those out across the studios. We generally trial things out in the bigger studios and then we roll them out across all the others.
That's great. So Penrith, where to from there after that?
Penrith, then Parramatta. So
Yep.
we literally took on Penrith, and within a couple of months, we get an email from the owner of an existing studio in
There's a pattern.
Parramatta.
There's a
I think,
pattern here.
yeah, there's a pattern. I think people are cottoning on. Okay, let's contact Sydney Pole, and then we
Also, that would have had to give you a bit of confidence that you might have been onto something as well, or not really at that stage. That these guys were like you were like the sort of the solution to their problem.
I think we started cottoning on by then. We're
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of like, okay, the second one happened, the third one happened then pretty quickly after. And we met with her. And this studio in particular had been running for 15 years.
Yeah, long time.
Some legacy there.
Yeah, so it had already had 2 owners before that. So the space needed a lot of work. I walked in, I was like, okay, there's smelly carpet and all kinds of things, but we did a bit of a makeover and put our spin and brand on it. So
It's really
amazing
interesting.
studio.
Parramatta is a very small studio. It's in a cul-de-sac in North Parramatta. So in a lot of ways, the location is not premium, right?
Yeah.
And it's a small space, but it has unbelievable culture and a real sense of belonging. And as studios go, it's actually one of our best performing studios,
Incredible.
just in terms of the amount
2
of customers.
rooms.
2 rooms, yeah. So it works
incredible.
very, very well.
And you're seeing, like, obviously you got the data, you've gone into Penrith, I'm assuming you fixed it pretty quickly, or you've seen the uplift in revenue quickly. You've come into Parramatta, done the same thing again, which gives you guys confidence to go, okay, cool, we're going to do this or that. The public, like the other owners aren't seeing, I guess, that happening internally. That's what I thought. I was just thinking the two. In a way, as an owner, you could either think, okay, cool, there's another opportunity here, or we're getting past a hand grenade here that you're going to get. Like, and it's a hard one to know what way you're going into.
Yeah.
How do you assess that? Like, you just go in and just go, okay, cool. Like, what do you just go from ground sort of the floor and go, this is what we think we can do with it? Like, is
And
it
are
just
you buying them, or are you just taking on the lease?
Buying them.
Yeah.
We take on the lease, or
Yeah,
we do a new
yeah.
lease, but we're buying them. But yeah, I mean, I think the studios that we've seen, location is important. We did pick a location of a studio that we took over that didn't work, but looking back, the location just wasn't right for us.
Yeah.
So I think, like in real estate, right, location is king. So that's important. Just the space, which I think is workable. You can redo the space and do a bit of a makeover. But yeah, I mean, I think 1 out of 10 is not so
Yeah.
bad.
So we have it down to a pretty good formula,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it does it have the potential to grow? And if we look at our studios run, the good studios, the 2-room studios can run 70 classes a week.
I see.
And so we look at it and we look at the demography of the area, we look at how it's set up, and if it has that potential, then we have picked them up. We've built our own as well. We built in Brisbane City because there was nothing around to buy. We went and we looked, and there was
Which has
nothing
grown
there.
really fast
It
because
has.
it's in the middle of
Absolutely.
CBD.
Yeah.
So it's a great
Yeah,
location.
that's our fastest growing studio by far.
when did it open?
Brisbane City?
Yeah.
That opened, 3 years ago?
3 years ago,
Yeah,
yeah.
3 years ago.
We're seeing a lot of fitness businesses pull back out of Brisbane at the moment. It's having a lot of trouble landing in Brisbane.
Right.
It's-
Maybe they're all
it's-
coming to our studio.
They might be. They might be shutting and doing pole. That's it. Yeah, it's really cool. So was Brizzy the first international? International. Was it the
Out-of-state.
first state out of state?
No, it was
Where'd you go there?
Capalaba,
Right.
which is about 25 minutes away from the airport.
Yep.
Yeah.
Waikapalaba. I know there's a big fitness scene there. Do you sort of follow that, or is it interest? Like, how do you land here?
We got approached by that owner as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had been looking around to start looking into Queensland, and we did go and visit quite a few other places. But honestly, sometimes it's a case of a willing owner and a price point that made sense.
Opportunity.
And it was had been part of a consortium. There were 3 or 4 studios that were kind of sharing a branding. And I think that had sort of dispersed. And we looked at that and a kind of sister brand in the city, and we opted not to buy the sister brand in the city. So we went with Capalaba, and then we subsequently built Brisbane after that.
What's a typical multiple that you'll pick one of these sites up for?
It has depended over the time, but generally about 30 cents on the dollar of revenue, of turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, and I don't know what the margins are, but it'd be close to sort of 1 times earnings or something like that, is it roughly?
Again, often the small business is very hard to determine what earnings are. And a lot of times with those studios operating at that sort of scale, there wasn't a lot of earnings in them.
Yeah.
So often it was better time to look at a revenue number and kind of assess that.
So had you left GE at this stage now, or you're still there?
Yeah, I left in 17.
Yeah, and what was the bigger, what was the driver for you? Was just like too much? You're like, hey, we've got something here, we're onto something, let's go all in. Like, what was the sort of the thought process for you?
Yeah, so I'd been with GE for 22 years.
Yeah, which is a long time, right?
It was a long time, yeah. But it was one of those companies that I'd moved around and done completely different jobs. Yeah. So, completely different functional roles, different businesses, from lighting to plastics to software, or you name it. But I worked for the digital business at the time, and we had grown up this nascent software business to do Internet of Things. So we were looking at all the equipment that the company made and building software to optimize that, so optimize a locomotive or an aircraft engine or whatever. And it was a business that we'd grown to a certain point, and then once it got to that kind of post-startup phase, they folded it into the other parts of the business. And so I wound up a lot of my digital organization across Asia. And so really there was no kind of immediate next step. So it was a chance to move on. And it made sense then to look at Sydney Pole, because we were at 5 or 6 studios then, or maybe 5, and it was clear that what we had made sense. Yeah. And if we could get the hub and spoke model working, even further, then we could take this as far as we wanted to go. Yeah. And so that was kind of the impetus really to move.
And so when you left GE, all in Sydney Pole, did you notice the growth of the business when we had 2 people that were driving it?
So when I first started Sydney Pole, I actually kept my corporate job for the first year. Yeah. So I didn't quite leave. So I was in North Sydney at the time, and one of my friends would literally pick me up after work every afternoon. We'd race over to Camperdown, open the studio. So I did that for the first year and nearly died. And then
especially because if you're working all day, then you're in there late at night.
I was very sick that year. But it's in business, right? You have to hustle, especially in the beginning. It's not forever. It's different types of hustling then. Yeah. But you have to put your blood, sweat, and tears into it. But I was very glad to leave my corporate job after that first year. But I noticed when I left the corporate job that this sales started going up because I could focus my entire attention on this. And I remember in the first few months, the graph was just going up. Mm-hmm. I'm like, so when he came on after 5-6 years full time, I'm like, I need help. And then it kept growing. So And
it's an exciting time too. I remember when Courtney and I, when we first kicked off, and it was, you make a sales call and you'd land that call and you go, oh, this is amazing. And you know that it's your business. And I know you built it for GA. You built these other businesses for GA. And I imagine some pretty big businesses, Mark, do that. But it's really exciting when it's your thing.
Yes.
And it's you can be, there's a lot of pride in building your own thing. So you come on about what would you say, Studio 5, 6 location?
Yeah, about that.
Yep. Yeah. And then for that, was things fairly bedded down operationally, or is that?
No, I think at that point in time, I think I'd say that we were holding it together.
Yeah.
But it was more kind of you could hold it together because it was 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And so I think my remit was very much to try and build out that structure. So Studio 5 to 10, really.
Yep.
And I think we've got that now. We've got a lot better back office structure in place, a lot better processes. But again, we've talked about this so many times. You go through these scaling challenges. And so I look at what we've built now to get us to 10.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to be the same model that's going to get us to 100.
Yeah.
And, beyond that. So it's a constant reinvention, really, in terms of what the structure of the business looks like.
How many sites do you think or the grand ambition for, say, for instance, Australia, before we look international? Like, what have you mapped this out?
Yeah.
Based on what you think? Yeah.
Yeah, like we're not going to see a Sydney pole on every street corner like in Anytime Fitness,
Yeah.
right? There isn't the market for that. But you'd be surprised how many people do pole.
Yeah.
And, like I said, here in Sydney, there's probably 30 studios and we've got another 8.
That are like economical studios.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I look at, Australia and say the opportunity is there for, 100 Sydney poles across the country.
Which is a great business.
Yeah, absolutely. But beyond that, like we've talked about this before, Australia really does lead the way in terms of the sophistication of the pole studios. In a lot of countries, they're still very, very niche, very small. And so I think there's a massive global opportunity for, a player like us who is organised and structured to take this as far as we want to go.
Yeah. And do you think when you start looking at different countries, you look at like a master franchise model, or
Look, I think a hybrid model makes sense, and I think it's a case of you have to look up country by country. And again, like a lot of brands that I've looked at, there are some countries that are going to be harder than others. I spent most of my career working around Asia, and there's nuance in terms of ownership and access to local market that sometimes maybe a master franchise arrangement makes sense. There are other areas where we may just get the scale and do it ourselves. So I think that landscape's yet to be decided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even open then resell,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The people that are buying studios now, like or that are moving into like a franchisee, are they typically people that work for you or have been in the industry or?
So we're seeing a real mix. So again, some studio owners that are converting. We're seeing teachers that are interested in opening a studio, certainly for that. But more and more, we're actually seeing individuals in the fitness space who aren't necessarily in and around pole, but just look at it as a great investment and a great opportunity. So somebody who is in a group PT role, for example, who's used to being around a fitness space, our setup costs are relatively inexpensive relative to a gym, and the returns are quite good. So as a model, I think it's one which is becoming increasingly attractive to a much broader base of people beyond people who are currently in pole. Yeah.
So what does that look like if I am a group-based personal trainer or something, and I've built a community around myself and I work for someone else, and I go, you know what, this is an opportunity. Like, what does that look like for someone like myself to jump into it?
Yeah, so the franchise model that we've built is one where the setup costs, the fit out costs are around about $120,000 to $150,000 to set up a studio. Compare that to a gym where there's a lot more equipment, right?
Way less.
Yeah. Our studios really have, mirrors, they have poles, you have air conditioning, sound system, lighting, but really they're relatively simple in terms of the setup. And so that makes for quite an attractive entry point for people. And the system itself, as I say, is quite mature now. So from an ongoing, relatively low franchise fee, our franchise fee is $50,000 to get in.
Yep.
And so, again, with a little bit of working cap, somebody with $250,000 can get themselves up and running and start to build a studio. And the model we've built is a 3-year growth model. And it's very similar to, because we've been through it ourselves organically, we know what that looks like. So we know the first 6 months, you're going to offer these sort of entry-level classes, the beginner's class, the technique level 1, the technique level 2. And so we train the teachers and the studio owners up to teach that. And then 6 months in, as the studio starts to grow and the students start to progress, we train them up to the next level and so on. So we've got this kind of ladder process to get people to where they want to be.
You've got to develop your own market space too, don't you? That's what's sort of happening. You've got to train these members to get to that point.
Absolutely.
Where they can
so it's like layering
longevity.
railway track.
Yeah.
So that makes a really good franchise model because you're not incurring the cost until you need it.
Yeah.
And so our teacher training comes in sort of 4 waves, and it equips people to teach the sort of the entry level, the intermediate level, the advanced, and the elite levels of classes through that progression. And so it allows the studio manager sort of to build the staff base up as they need them. And really a studio sort of, if you could get a pre-launch studio with sort of 50 customers from the beginning, to get it to 300 members is really what we're looking at as a studio. And that is a great 2-room studio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And unlike a gym where people join and perhaps don't go, our members come.
Yeah.
Because
We want them to come.
They want them to
Yeah.
come because it's a progression class, right? So it's like, when you're a kid in school, if you missed a class in maths, you're going to just get lost.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that we do encourage our students to come each and every week so they keep building. And that, I think, is a little bit different to a gym model. So 300 or so members is generally what we look for as a really successful 2-room studio.
Yeah.
That's great.
Huge.
Price point for the member.
Yeah. So the prices vary depending on how many classes they do. A sort of a casual class is going to be around about $40.
Yep.
Most of the members up for sort of pick up the membership pack, so they end up getting a discount the more classes they do. So the average person's paying about $30 per class, and the average person's doing 2 classes a week and 2 free practices. So the average member's bringing in $60 of class revenue, plus whatever they're spending on merchandise and you know, any additional stuff on top.
Yeah.
There's only a maximum of 13 people in a class for a pole class. There's 14 poles. The instructor has 1. So it's not like a gym where there's a massive class of, 30, 40 people. So it's much more of an intimate environment.
Yeah.
And the for a franchisee, is it a fee or a percentage of gross?
It's a percentage, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we charge a percentage.
Yeah. And have you replicated another model, or you just sort of figured that out like through your experience with your corporate?
Yeah, because we have our own corporate-owned studios, we run them very much as that franchise anyway. They have a studio manager in place, and they have their own P&L. So we've built that model to be a sustainable model, and so we strongly believe that the numbers around that really work for a franchisee. And so somebody coming in to own their own Sydney pole, I think the model's got a lot of legs.
Yeah. And does HQ market on behalf of a new area, or?
Yeah, so we do the brand-based marketing. We do a lot of the sort of high-level lead gen. And if the local sort of franchise wants to do anything above and beyond, whether that's digital or non-digital, we can help them with templates and assets and the like. And they're free to kind of do their own stuff on top of that.
Yeah, that's cool. So you guys now, 2023, starting to put the pieces together. It's just grow now. Do you see? Is it you guys that take it to 100 in Australia, or do you think you'll need to recruit, someone else at a HQ level, or what's your sort of thoughts and feelings?
Oh, I'm sure we'll be recruiting some more people
Yeah,
to
I
help
think
us
we'll-
get there.
Yeah, we'll definitely be recruiting more people to help us.
Yeah, in senior roles, like someone to sort of steer the ship.
I think so.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, the team that we've got is interesting. If you look at the demographics of our staff, our teachers, for example, come from huge diverse backgrounds. We've got lawyers, we've got teachers, we've got doctors that teach classes.
Wow.
Right?
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, and you wouldn't necessarily think that, right? And in our head office team, we've got a really good mix of corporate background in there as well. So we've got a team which not only knows pole, I mean, everybody pretty much in our corporate team does pole. So they do understand the product, they understand the customer journey, but they've generally got their own, background as well, which kind of gives them that strength to get there. So I think, we'll see what that journey looks like in terms of the skill set that we've got. But we've got a pretty heavyweight team to kind of get us a good way along that journey. But we're not adverse to getting help anywhere we can. And I think what we've learned is that a partnership model makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be said for kind of getting that support along the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's been 10 years, and I think over the years, we've had different team players, but I think the team we have today is just so strong, and everybody supports one another, and it's hard to find good people and a team that works together. But I feel like the team we have today is just, they do such amazing work together.
And our studio managers truly own their spaces.
Yeah.
It's like it's their own business, which is just a great feeling.
From a brand presence point of view, is there much effort from HQ to try to help tell the story of pole, or who it is, or who it's for, just to try to, because it's like trying to commercialize it almost and make it accessible to everyone.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of what we do centrally. So in terms of the franchise value proposition, we have a huge focus around content-based marketing. And so, the franchisee almost really gets content-based marketing. They get the classes and curriculum, they get the clothing and merch, and then they get all the customer care support. So really those kind of big 4 C's is the way I kind of describe it. But that branding and that content-based marketing is something that's really important to us. We have dedicated people in-house who produce our content, do all the promotions for new classes. And so we feel that's a huge sort of win for the franchisee, that they, that's something that's done for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's in HQ now? What sort of roles? How many people at sort of top staff, top level?
So we have Duke, who does our growth and sales. So he sort of heads up all of that. MG, who Mark was talking about before, she does all of our content. So she does all the videography and then edits and puts it all together. Kim, who's looking after our franchising space. So do you want to elaborate more on that?
Yep. So she's responsible for the franchise marketing and franchise growth.
Is that outbound, inbound, both?
Outbound at the moment, yeah. I'm sure we'll see that change. But and then
Charlotte, who looks
Charlotte.
after all of our merch. So she orders all of our merch, designs.
And just distributes it back into
Yeah,
the
so
studios,
she would distribute to all the studios.
And then
Chloe,
we have Chloe. Chloe
Yep.
is responsible for all our curriculum and
Okay, yep.
classes. So Chloe's amazing. She's got a huge social media presence and very, very strong pole dancer.
so in the pole community. Yeah,
Yep.
and then our studio managers,
And the studio managers.
Jade, Dorinda, Ashley, and
Maz.
Maz,
Maz, who runs
from Queensland.
Queensland.
She's
Yeah.
our Queensland queen.
Great.
So cool.
And your roles now typically they've kind of like segregated out into your own lanes. Like what's
Yeah, more and more so. I think
Yeah.
that's been a big. I mean, when you started, you were doing everything. but
Yeah.
That role definition is really, really critical.
did you have trouble, Robin, having to sort of not having to, but did you have trouble handing, I guess, part of your responsibility or part of that back to Mark? Like
Definitely.
Yeah. How'd you go with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there was lots of swimming in lanes,
Yeah.
like all the time. Everybody was like doing butterfly and backstroke and all kinds of things.
That's not how I do it.
Yeah. And I think it is like when you start off, it's like it is hard to let go of things. But then I think you kind of come to the point where you can't do everything yourself,
Yeah.
and nor does that make sense. And your strengths, I mean, you think you might have to design things, but you're really crap at doing that.
Yeah.
So it's just like pick what you're good at and play to your strengths.
And what you enjoy as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool. So what are you in charge of, or sort of what's your purview right now?
Yeah, so I'm sort of still very much involved in the day-to-day operations.
Yep.
I used to teach, which I do love, but after trying to do everything, I was like, I can't do it all.
Not best use of your time.
Yeah, but every now and then, like I do love to teach a class, and that's fun because that's something I enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, really the day-to-day operations and just making sure that all the processes are running smoothly and everyone's sort of
I guess
doing.
the managers can come to you with questions or concerns.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And then for you, Mark, like where are you sitting now? Is it more on the commercial side of this thing? Okay.
Yeah. So my role is really to kind of grow the business, the strategic growth, the partnerships, and sort of take us from 10 to 100 studios.
It's really exciting. And that happens. Do you think it happens in Australia, or when do you think that number? What do you think that's sort of the size, or what do you think the trigger is to go? You know what, we've got sort of enough, I guess, dominance in the market right now to go. Cool. And the support. Let's sort of venture to another country.
I don't think it's an either or. I think if the opportunity comes up to do a bit in parallel. Australia is a great place for fitness franchising, and I think our model is are generally respected and appreciated around the world. So I think this is a great place to cut our teeth.
Yeah.
And I've got a pretty diverse background, but I've never been in the franchise fitness space. So certainly the last year has been a huge learning for me in terms of getting into that space. So I think for us, we're continuing on this journey. I think Australia is a great place to build out that model. But somewhere on the line, if the sort of international opportunities start to present themselves, I think we look at those as well.
I remember I was probably 12 or 13. I was at a business sort of seminar with my mother-in-law, and I went there, and the guy that was running the show, he basically said Australia's one of the hardest countries in the world to own and run a business. And we're isolated. We're got a comparatively small population of a large land mass. And I remember this setting he said is like, if you can build a business in Australia, you can build a business anywhere. And he used like Sydney as an example against somewhere like Mexico City, where Mexico City, I think again this is 20 years old. It was like a 22 kilometre sort of area, and they had 25 or 26 million people in it. He's like, we've got Australia in a 22 kilometre zone, and I thought it was really interesting. And it's the same thing as like, if you can build it over here and get it right. It grabs in North America or grabs in a Singapore or a UK. I think it gets hold pretty quickly.
But you think about what we do, and this is a discretionary item for a lot of people.
It is, yeah.
So it is something that people have to want to do. So we have to be very big on customer value. The market is there, but the market is very conscious of where they're spending their money right now. This is a tough space to be out there. But I do think that it is. You're absolutely right. If we can make it here, and I think there's a huge opportunity elsewhere. Pole is still very nascent in a lot of countries, and some of that is attitudes, different
culture.
markets, culture.
Yeah.
But I think when we started, they weren't as mature as they are here, and so it's a journey I think we can go on. And so again, picking those environments where people are fitness oriented, they're liberal, want to try something new, and I think there's a market out there for this will work all over the world.
Especially when we start talking about like confidence and empowering people, and you can have a corporate job and wear the corporate jacket, and then go and do this fun and exciting thing when the sun goes down, and it's really accepted, and and sort of all your little circles we'll clap your hands, you bring your family in to watch it. Like, I love that concept of,
Yeah.
you know, like you promote yourself, you get promoted into the next stage.
Yeah.
I think it's huge.
I think it's like it's a safe space for
Absolutely.
people. They come in, you know, they shut the door, and it's like there's no judgment.
Yeah.
Everybody accepts everyone, and it's just such an encouraging environment. So I think it's just a safe space, a home away from home, and a place to belong for people.
And we have to still be sensitive. I mean, whilst you talk about attitudes are changing, we do have people who are, you know, quite private about their pole classes.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we do sort of make sure that people are very, you know, respectful in class, particularly using phones, cameras, and posting things where somebody else might be seen. So we do respect that. But more and more we hear people that are, you know, much more out there sort of wildly talking about their pole journey. But,
Yeah.
you know, it is a journey. It's a journey for everybody.
Yeah, super exciting. Well, yeah, I think he's done an incredible job over the last 10 years. And when we first spoke, Mark, it was like my ears pricked up because it was an amazing concept. When you start talking about the numbers as well of the members, I'm like, wow, like this isn't just an idea. Like you've built something really incredible. And it's cool to see you sort of double down now and offer it to the rest of the country and to land and expand across the world. So yeah, you've done an incredible job.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
yeah, I'm very excited to watch it play out and Sydney Pole into the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Thank you.
If franchisees want to or someone wants to get hold of you guys to talk about as a member or to open a site, where do they find you?
Yeah, we're online, franchising.sydneypole.com, or get in touch with any of us. We're always happy to talk about the story and see whether it's right for them.
Yeah.
Come to a class.
Come to a class.
We'll show you all the tricks.
Absolutely.
Let's go to a class now.
Yeah, let's go do a class.
Awesome. It was
Thanks
great.
so much.
It was great having you on.
Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you.
Cheers,
Thanks.
guys.
Thanks, guys.
That's good.
That's cool.